Right, so the by-election failures by the Tories this week, despite media narratives squealing about a Labour landslide, actually showed that the Labour vote stood still whilst the Tory vote completely collapsed. Tens of thousands of Tories staying at home, and let's face it, if they aren't turning out, you can't win. It doesn't matter how much you rig the electoral system, how big your majority might be, you can't force people to actually vote, and therefore you can't actually win. It's a shocker, actually, because Tory voters are usually united by their own greed. That's why they so reliably show up and vote each time. That's why the party of personal greed has lasted for as long as it has. The Tory party is built on pure selfishness. So what's changed now? What's shifted since the last election? And is there any chance of them avoiding what looks like an extinction level event? And why should we care anyway? Right, so two by-elections in different parts of the country, both Tory safe seats, both lost to Labour, and the reason being people stayed at home. I went into this in my analysis video last Friday. I'm not going to repeat the results again here. But we have this party that has existed since 1832, built on greed, driven by selfishness, losing seats that never change hands by and large. Tamworth was originally Labour when it was created in 1997, but it was lost by Gordon Brown and has become an ever-increasingly safe Tory seat ever since. Mid-Bedfordshire, however, has existed since 1918, and aside from the old Liberal Party winning back in the 1920s, it has been solidly Tory right up to this point. Greed and having a self-serving nature is no longer enough to get the Tory vote out, it seems. Though, of course, a by-election protest vote is not the same as staying at home en masse for a general election when the party who forms the next government is at stake. Yet still the Tories are despairing over these results, and well, they might. If their voters are choosing to stay at home rather than endorse what that party has become, then there's no longer any such thing as a safe Tory seat. We've already seen some 50-odd Tory MPs announce they are stepping down ahead of the next election. The most recent, apparently set to quit, is current Chancellor Jeremy Hunt. Things now looking so ropey for him in Surrey. I'll repeat that again, Surrey. Leafy, ever so reliably Tory voting Surrey. Stockbroker belt country Surrey. Enough emphasis now? So ropey for him in Surrey that he's expected to announce he's stepping down, unable to face the prospect of losing his seat publicly, avoiding a Portillo moment. The natural place to look to apportion blame for this is, of course, obviously, current leader Rishi Sunak, who is a completely wet behind the ears embarrassment, an utterly useless weakling, completely owned by the hard right of his own party, who are very much in the driving seat policy-wise, pushing culture wars as the only thing they have left to offer. But as useless as he is, he's not the one totally at fault for the Tories' ailing fortunes. You have to go back to Boris Johnson. You have to say Partygate did huge damage to the Tories as rule breach after rule breach came to light. The fines, the determination that the rules seemingly worked for him, the arrogance, and then the them and us attitude he promoted rubbed huge numbers of people up the wrong way. And of course, as more information comes out from the investigation into what was going on in government at that time continues and will continue until 2026, the damage is consistently ongoing. The latest example of this being Johnson's apparent belief that long COVID was akin to Gulf War syndrome insofar as he didn't believe in it, and that he apparently deliberately ignored lockdown advice as opposed to always following the advice as we were told they were doing back in autumn of 2020, so that medical experts believe that if he had listened to them, if he had taken the advice, we could have avoided some 25,000 deaths. We couldn't avoid all deaths, but certainly we could have saved a heck of a lot. 25,000 people, that's a lot of people. That's criminal. More will come out. And then, of course, there was Liz Truss, whose unfunded tax cuts crashed the economy, resulting in her being the shortest tenured Prime Minister in history, outlasted by a lettuce. But she's still around too, still causing damage to the Tory brand, since not only is she still allowed to stand as a Tory candidate, such as Sunak's weakness in permitting such a disastrous candidate to stand to be an MP again next time around, but she's still in complete denial what she did was wrong, and she's still agitating for more tax cuts. She's never apologised, she never will, and is a walking, talking example of just how awful the Tory party is now. Sunak inherited that fallout, two absolute headbangers, and so he did what you might have thought would be the sensible thing and portrayed himself as Mr. Strong and Stable, Mr. I Won't Rock the Boat, Mr. Safe Pair of Hands, Mr. Transparency, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Economically Credible, and all of that. He then rapidly proved he wasn't that at all. For one, nobody elected him to his position, not even Tory party members. He got crowned by the parliamentary Tory party, which put members off him rapidly, especially since he'd already lost to Liz Truss once. He also proved to be incredibly weak and not transparent at all, with scandal after scandal being laid before him as he failed to suspend Nadeem Zahawi despite his erroneous tax affairs, and likewise with Dominic Raab and the bullying allegations made against him. Raab is stepping down at the next election too, but not Zahawi. He's been selected to stand for Stratford once again. So what discipline and punishment is ever shown on the Tory ranks by Sunak? None. He's totally owned by the hard right, without whose support he cannot carry on. And that's why someone like Suella Braverman is the main example, in my opinion, remain in post, despite all they've said and done, from wanting to x-ray migrants to check they're really children, to denying pregnant women the £3 a week extra by way of nutrition that they needed, to all the stop the boats rhetoric, to the Rwanda deportations, to putting asylum seekers on disease-riddled prison barges, and she just carries on. Most people, and a lot of Tory voters too, I'm counting in this, are disgusted by it. It's not strong, safe hands leadership. It's racist hatred of minorities to win points from a rump of truly disgusting individuals within our party. By becoming ever more extreme, the Tories are making themselves more unelectable and unsupportable. Far from being Mr. Stability, Sunak has tried to be Mr. Change too, which, when he has no mandate whatsoever to do that, has also upset people, annoyed members of his party, pissed off the base. He had no mandate for his 5 pledges he decided to nail his colours to, nor any real power to achieving them. Halving inflation by the end of this year was criticised because it was likely to happen anyway. It's now stalled this last month on 6.7%, making it look more uncertain and making it look like it's his fault. But headline inflation is meaningless when meaningful inflation, such as that on food, remains stubbornly high, and higher than that headline figure, currently sitting at 12.2%. And even when inflation drops, that isn't a drop in prices anyway, it's just a reduction in how much they're rising by. So drawing attention to something which is only ever going to be a price increase, unless it goes negative, is probably not the win Sunak the banker keeps thinking it is. NHS waiting lists remain too high and can't possibly fall fast enough to benefit him before the next election, not that he's doing much meaningfully to deal with that either. The national debt is another meaningless target to most people and isn't really a debt anyway, just a measure of how much cash is in the system. The economy has barely avoided recession, and stopping the boats won't ever happen until and unless a safe asylum route is created, which no main party will commit to. Sunak said, "I'll change stuff, I'll fix stuff," and has just shown himself to be the latest Tory leader to fail at doing that. People won't keep voting for failures. It's not just the fact he's unelected and has no mandate that is done for Sunak, from £2 million of government investment which has been shown to benefit his wife's business interest, to government contracts to Infosys, his wife's family firm, which he benefits from to the tune of millions every year, to announcing new drilling licenses open to companies which Infosys has contracts with, making every government decision a question of how exactly is Sunak going to personally benefit from this one. A country run in his family's interest is how many people perceive this guy. So is it really any wonder people are not turning out for this party of abject failure, of high taxation on those who can't afford to be taxed, because they'll never tax the rich, who they should be taxing, when they're led by a guy who is literally one of the richest men in the country? A literal example of the 1% telling the 99% he knows what is best for them. Get rid of him for someone else. Well, sure, let's do that. But who? Who on those Tory benches right now could make a difference? Would it make a difference anyway when the recent historical damage the Tories have done to the country, both economically and during the pandemic, which Sunak is also implicated in, fined as he was during Partygate, Eat Out to Help Out, which was his idea, also shown to be a massive spreader event, and which led to the now Chief Scientific Advisor Angela McLean, at the time, referring to Sunak as Dr. Death, knowing the harm it would cause to lives, but which Sunak disregarded, his only concern being the economy. A dangerous, callous little weakling who, whilst he was losing these most recent by-elections when his voters were staying at home, he was in Israel telling Benjamin Netanyahu, the chief occupier of Palestine, that he hoped he'd win and that Britain was with him, even after he'd been found to have deliberately targeted a fucking hospital. Well, no, not in my name you don't support him. Tory voters aren't turning out for the Tory Party because even they, like the rest of us, are sick and tired of them. They now face an extinction-level general election because of that very simple fact. And I can't see how anything can change that now. For all we know, Keir Starmer's Labour vote will fall as well, as people are unenthused and disgusted by him in turn, yet could still end up winning a general election landslide regardless of that, simply because people hate the Tories more. UK politics, I don't think, has ever looked more bleak and depressing in my lifetime. We can only hope Something better comes out of it, though, with Reform UK seemingly waiting in the wings to suck up disaffected Tories, not realising they're even more right-wing and even more dangerous. Things could conceivably become even worse. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where I dug into those 2 most recent by-elections in the past week. There could be more to come yet too, and I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.